Finance Minister Tito Mboweni will deliver his much-anticipated budget speech this afternoon. It is regarded as the most challenging one due to high unemployment, low economic growth and poor-performing state-owned companies. My colleague Rofhiwa Madzena is keeping a close eye on developments and joins me now live from Cape Town. I guess one of the big questions he's going to have to answer is how to deal with this ballooning debt to GDP.
That is the big question indeed, Jane, and hopefully he'll provide adequate answers to provide some certainty to the likes of Moody's and other big ratings agencies, as well as potential foreign and local investors. But I'm not the expert here, Jane, and I do have someone who will be providing some insights throughout the morning, Andrew Duvenich from NFB, and he'll be my commentator providing analysis on the key elements that should be focused on in this afternoon's budget speech. Good morning, Wayne. Andrew, rather. And thank you for joining me this morning. I think the big one that we'll be focusing on, as we've just mentioned there, is debt to GDP. You cannot grow the economy without dealing with the debt, can you?
Absolutely. I think the rating agencies, investors, the public will be looking to see, are there any tangible plans and credible plans to deal with debt to GDP? Unfortunately, we cannot continue to add debt onto the pile at this rate for a country which has systemically high interest rates. And really the focus will be whether Minister Mboweni can deal with the budget deficit, which is really the reason that we're taking on so much debt. So that will be the focal point today.
Yeah, and I mean, many analysts over the last few months since the midterm budget was delivered are anticipating that debt to GDP is going to grow more than expected by Treasury in that particular statement. How do we begin to deal with that growing amount? I mean, we're also looking at 200 billion in interest payments alone. So how do we begin to curb that growth?
Well, the main thing, well, they've got two levers really to work with, is to plug the deficit. They're either going to focus on tax, which we think would be a bad outcome, to try and extricate more revenue from the fiscus, or alternatively what they're going to need to do is they're going to need to cut expenditure, and the natural places to look are at the wage bill, wasteful expenditure and those sort of things, because as you say, the problem is as your debt bill grows, your interest repayments increase and it starts crowding out investment into the economy for longer term economic growth, and that's really the challenge that they sit with at the moment.
If we are able to cut the debt that we have at the moment, which is highly unlikely, I think there's an expectation that it will grow to about 70% within the next 2 to 3 years. When do we start to see some kind of growth? Is it a medium-term thing or is it a longer-term thing?
Yeah, so I think if you look at today, it's unlikely that you're going to find any short-term solutions. We're past diagnosis, we know that it's bad. Minister Mboweni is not going to fix anything today. Debt's not coming down today. Deficit's not going away today. It's the medium-term plans that they have, and to understand if the reductions in expenditure which Minister Mboweni identified about 6 months ago, whether there's been any implementation. So they were talking about cuts of around 150 billion rand of expenditure over 3 years. The question is, what has been done? Does the political will exist to follow through on this? And will they be willing to make tough choices that aren't politically popular in many ways, so that they can start to see the benefit? But debt is going to continue to go up. The medium-term budget statement was an honest reflection, I think, which was positive, but it really was a bombshell to see that debt was significantly higher. What was missed by a lot of the market in December was that the Reserve Bank came out with statistics that government debt to GDP has already exceeded what the medium-term budget statement said by around 1%. So I would anticipate today that it's not going to be pretty from that perspective, but the focal points for rating agencies and for the investment community will be, are there tangible plans in place as it stands right now to start dealing with it? It's not going to be a short-term fix. It's a medium-term game.
But even if we do have some plans to implement this, we've got the coronavirus as well. So it's almost two big things that we're dealing with at the moment. And what does that say for the investor appetite, both local and foreign investors, for the medium to the long term?
It's extremely difficult because we're at a stage as South Africa where we've got significant internal problems, and now there are global headwinds. You're finding a slowing down of global growth. You've got global elements, as you say, things like the coronavirus coronavirus, which is causing risk aversion in emerging markets. So these are certainly headwinds. But some of those things in reality are beyond our control. We have to fix the things that we can focus on internally. And that's why if you looked at the President's State of the Nation speech, is what Minister Mboweni now needs to do, to show the practical how we're going to deal with those things. And that will be the focus today.
We have to deal with the how are we going to be dealing with the state of the country's financials, Jane.